Hello, what's going on YouTube? This is J Money here, and I'm bringing you guys a somewhat metagame report and where it could potentially go within the next week to 2 weeks, because we got our awesome little first wave of deck lists that came in this past week, and it looks like we have a for sure starting point as to where the meta is going to be. In reality, it might actually immediately change within the next week to 2 weeks. But first off, I want to start by saying, I did predict that World Challenge is going to do a lot better, and they already started. Granted, World Challenge has topped regionals before, but within the first week, we got the that fifth place top in Melbourne. We got a top in the Lenexa regional, don't know where that is, and then at the ARG in Arizona this past weekend, we didn't get not one but not two but three World Challenge tops in the ARG in Arizona. So there's three tops right there, five tops within the first weekend, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. But, I'm not going to talk about World Challenge today. I'm going to talk about, the meta and where it is right now, even though it's still kind of like Jello. But it is, we got a nice little idea of what's happening and what trends we're starting to see, and what kind of adaptations we're going to be making within the next week to 2 weeks. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go and start off with the big two, the elephant in the room. We're talking about True Dracos and Dinosaurs. They're starting to be integrated back into the meta, not just as decks, but as splashable engines. If a deck like Trickstar can splash cards like Dramatic Diagram and all that, then they have space for Masterpiece. Same with Shadal's. Shadal Dinos is a very powerful choice when it comes to turn 1, maybe even turn 2 because of the Shadals. But being able to just normal summon Overraptor and send Overtext Coatless to the grave to grab your double evolution pill, play your Shadal fusion to make Winda, because your Overraptor is also a dark, and you use a Shadal, you send like Beast to the grave or whatnot, and you draw a card, and then you play evolution pill and lock and put up your conductor. That's a very hard board to get over, and it can do some serious damage. There's also decks like BA that can also use this same engine. All you need to do is just make your Dante off your special summons, and then normal summon your Overraptor, send your Overtext Coatless, and since BA are all non-dinosaurs, Devil Evolution Pill is automatically live. And so, it's just, as long as you can afford to use a normal summon on something like Overraptor and not your main strategy, you're generally fine in that regard. Same thing with Lightsworn. Lightsworn can do it as well. But, and they have a little bit more wiggle room, simply for the fact that they're one of the only decks that can play 60 card decks effectively. Now, the thing about True Dracos is there's a guy that topped the, the Fort Worth Regionals, got 6th place with True Dracos featuring some Magical Musketeer cards. Now, the thing about it is, he didn't just play a whole Magical Musketeer deck. He played, let's see, the reasoning behind a lot of this stuff was pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But he was playing, all he was playing was 3 Caspar, one Desperado, one Dead Man's Burst, or Last Stand, and he had a Dancing Needle in the side deck. Now, the reasoning behind this was because any True Draco card you would just play, like a spell card, like a True Draco spell under the Caspar, you would search your Dead Man's Burst, and you would sack for Majesty's Maiden, and now it opened up your zone. But the reason behind this was so he just didn't auto-lose to evenly matched, which a lot of people now, it's not just that deck, but a lot of other decks are starting to integrate either evenly matched in the main deck or a hard counter to evenly matched in the main deck, which is it's pretty important. It's pretty important to not auto lose to an evenly match, even though I do play evenly matched in the main. I've always played evenly matched in the main because there's always been a board wipe that just bypassed non-destruction on targeting, and it got rid of back row. But that's besides the point. But his reasoning behind it was pretty good. You sack off from Majesty's Maiden, and then, you know, on their turn, you negate, you know, a pretty powerful spell. You search the Death Parado, and you disrupt. You know, use the trap card, summon Masterpiece. You know, it's actually a pretty solid option. You get to keep the Majesty's Maiden, and you can sack off the Casbar, and, you know, if you've already used the Death Parado, and, you know, it was pretty solid strategy, pretty sound strategy, and it was, you know, it was actually pretty good. Next, you know, we have Paleos starting to come out of the woodworks because they are also main decking evenly matched, and, you know, from the sound of it, Hate Grenade doesn't seem like that big of a deal, because you can shotgun some cards during the standby phase, some of these Paleo cards, and still get the special summons you need. Not only that, people reserve Hate Grenade for the side deck, which makes gives Paleo a better advantage game one. You know, and now that it's just like, you know, it's easier to make Toad turn one without worrying about too many hand traps, because Ash Blossom is actually pretty bad this format. Even though it's still a universally good card, against Pendulums, it's like the worst one. And that's what people anticipated for, and they reserved Ash Blossoms maybe even for the side deck. And so the Paleo players were able to make Toads much easier, meaning you can now negate evenly matched and set it to your board and not auto lose to it, which is actually pretty key. Trick Stars are lagging behind a little bit in the meta, but that's only because, for one, Trick Stars can't out Masterpiece. Borreload can, but the moment I don't know, the moment somebody gets wind of it, you can sack a trap and try and kill it, or Masterpiece kill the Mrs. Radiant or the Proxy Dragon, whichever route they choose to go with making the Borreload. And since they don't run Honest, you know, it's a wrap. You know, not only that, but Trick Stars, they need to, again, they just need to define meta before they can make the appropriate main deck meta calls necessary to be adjusted to a format that is yet to be defined. Next, we have Lightsworn. The 60 card Lightsworns are really coming in hot. Curios actually does quite wonders, because especially the Lightsworn zombie builds, because surprisingly enough, a lot of the zombies are Earths. The Mizukis are Earths. I think the Unizombie, maybe, no. I think Unizombie is either Earth or Dark, but I know the Goblinbergs are Earths and all that good stuff. Making Scoldy, that's an Earth. You know, there's just so many good things about Lightsworn, especially now that we no longer have Resort just running around at 3 copies. And, you know, Lightsworns actually have a little wiggle room to do some things. Now, the Gym Knight FDK is probably the reason why Effect Veiler has started making its way in, not just because targeting is good, but you need to negate one of the Lapis Lazulis or one of the Master Diamonds, or you just straight up lose the game. Well, I mean, Ghost Ogre, you can probably do that. Ghost Ogre accomplishes the same thing, but the problem with, you know, Effect Veiler, it's okay. I still don't like it simply for the fact that it does target. Now, there are some ups and downs of Veiler versus Ash and Ogre. For one, you can't out chain block an Effect Veiler, and what I mean is you can't just cover certain monsters by the chain link to protect from Veiler, since Veiler does target. But the fact that Veiler still targets makes it inherently weak to other things, meaning targeting it has to be on the field. For starters, it can only be during your opponent's main phase, and it doesn't hit grave effects. It doesn't hit effects from hand that can potentially summon things from the deck. That's why Ash Blossom is so good, and Veiler does not hit spell and traps like Dragonic Diagram. That's why Ogre is so good, and especially, you know, being able to hit, you know, Chronograph Sorcerer, hit Wisdomize, hit the Star Pendulum Graph so they don't search, you know, things like that. And, you know, hitting Time Pendulum Graph after it's already on the board, those things are huge. Those things are huge and really important, and they don't target, so there is absolutely no way in hell that the targeting is going to get dodged. Not only that, but let's say I summon Alistair and attempt to search, and you Valor, and I change something like, let's say an enemy controller attributed off, now it's off the field, it dodged Valor, but at the same time, in the same instance, if I attempt to Ash the Ogre, or the Alistair to add, and I chain enemy controller, the effect of Alistair is still negated. It's still going to be negated because it doesn't target. It's directly responding to whatever effect is going on at the time. And that's what I like about the other hand traps is that, you know, mind control is coming back, and decks like ABCs can just abuse enemy controller and all that good stuff. And so dodging targeting, you know, it's still a thing. And the same thing with Trick Stars. If I decide to summon Candina and search, and you attempt to Valor, and I have a Licorice in hand, well, then you just literally negged one for no reason. But that's what we got for the meta decks right now. And, you know, Valor seems to be the hot topic so far. But the problem is, since we're seeing a lot of Dinos being splashed, a lot of True Dracos being splashed, Valor might not be that good anymore, and it might see its way right back out because Valor is restricted to your opponent's main phase. So when it is your turn to try and play around a Conductor Tyranno or play around a Masterpiece, Valor is a completely dead card in hand. And same thing with El Shaddai Winda. What if you can deal with the Tyranno, but you need a special summon more monsters? Then, you know, Valor can't shut down the window. It can't shut it down. So, you know, within a week, people will notice this and things will already start changing. And let me go ahead and get to it. So, cards like Kaijus and Forbidden Chalice, things that you can use on the player's turn to start interacting with opponents, will start being really, really good. Will start being more played. Valor will start seeing its way out because we might see more Dino engines and more True Draco engines being splashed and just dead. And now you want more cards to combat, especially Masterpiece, because Masterpiece is a one of a boss monster, even especially in an undefined format, to where you need to auto out to it. And most of the time, if they drop their first turn, it's probably immune to spells, so Chalice wouldn't be that effective. But if it's on your turn, which, you know, generally people will search it off Majesty's Maid and then tribute a trap card to add a layer of disruption. So most of the time it will be, it will still not be immune to spell cards. But not only that, but getting that news of the new the Dark Structure deck, you know, that new Crush card is actually pretty insane. You know, the fact that it can literally sit here and you can destroy things from deck and not trigger the effects of like any of the BAs, any of the Cosmos, any of that is huge. And so with that Crush card being able to just literally replace Crush card in every shape, form, or fashion, My Body is a Shield might actually be really good, not only just for that, but because Conductor Tyranno, since it doesn't target, if there's even if only himself was on board to destroy, to book things down, you can still My Body and hit the Conductor. Once again, most of the time Masterpiece is still immune to spell cards, so seeing that is a golden opportunity to play My Body. So I do see My Body coming right back, because I not only see a lot of this stuff, but I already see Torrentials being splashed in multiples in a lot of decks. My Body can counter that, and some decks like Paleo can play multiple bottomless trap holes, even though a lot of them don't. They're just other ways to make My Body alive. So we're gonna see a lot of these quick play spells come right back to the game, as that when that Dark Structure deck comes out, and as long as Masterpiece and Dinosaur engines are being splashed, you're gonna see less hand traps, because these Ash Blossoms, these Ghost Ogres, can't really do too much against these engines. Yeah, you can Ash an Oviraptor, and that'd be pretty good. But if you don't have the Ash and you just have like an Ogre, the Overtext Coatless still gets sent to the graveyard. You still get your search, yada yada. Not only that, but most of the time, let's say I play Shaddoll Fusion, you'll most likely ask the Shaddoll Fusion because it can send things from the deck, and nobody wants that. And so that would also make things like Overraptor Live. If I decide to play Desires, you know, it can happen that way. If I decide to activate my Terraforming, get my Dragonic Diagram, and I can use Diagram, and you ash me, then I have a Majesty's Maiden on the board, and I can search Masterpiece the next turn, so Ash is already out of hand. I still have Masterpiece and all that stuff, so I really don't see hand traps being as impactful as last format, to where it's like either make your first turn board or bust, because now things are a little bit more controlled and less OTK based and less build super oppressive board based, to where you can actually sit on whatever you have and somewhat be fine, because dinosaurs are pretty oppressive. You know, the Monarch's Erupt is pretty stupid. Inspector Border is pretty stupid. The only decks I can see that can actually OTK are Pendulums, and they're a fragile strategy by itself. You know, the only reason they're so good is because they have so many follow-up plays. But if, again, decks that main deck anti-spell fragrance, like, you know, Paleos, maybe even Trickstars, and to an extent some True Dracos after they've already just went through all of their stuff, you know, it's, you know, I can imagine it being pretty difficult to end up just, you know, you get it. But, you know, that's where I see happening. I see less hand traps in the game, and more kaijus and quick play spells that can interact on both players' turns to deal with these big boss monsters, because now we're going back to, you know, some good stun boss monsters again. Shaddoll Winda, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, Masterpiece, Inspector Border, you know, Toad backed up by a few cards. You know, we're coming back to decks like that, and, you know, hand traps really aren't all that great against boss monsters. Again, what is an Ash Blossom going to do against an established Masterpiece or an established Tyranno on the board? Absolutely nothing. And so that is just what I feel is going to happen. That's why, and I feel like it will happen within the next week to 2 weeks, as people start to realize, okay, these big boss monsters are starting to become more prevalent. You know, maybe we'll get more board wipes in the game, more Dark Holes, Raigeki. You know, it's like half and half in people's main deck, and maybe we'll get Kaiju packages in the main deck with Slumber again, like I was doing with 3 evenly matched in the main deck. You know, who knows? Anything can happen, and a lot of decks are really benefiting from this ban list. Again, even World Chalice, because we just got 5 tops in the past weekend by itself. But anyway, those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What have you guys noticed? Any of you guys that are watching this video, if you guys went to any competitive events, let me know. I'm noticing less Pendulum decks are actually doing the typical runs, and I see more are playing the Mythical Beast engines or Magispector engines, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty good. You know, Magispectors can't be destroyed by battle by card effects. They get you disruptive cards a lot easier, which makes sense. It's like, why make an Autoized Vortex Dragon when you can summon multiple Magispectors and get multiple disruption cards? You know, it makes sense. Even spell cards like Magispector Storm, if you need to out a card, you know, before playing important cards, you know, I can see that. And the same thing with the Mythical Beast engine. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, and it adds more versatility, and it adds more. It makes your opponent have to use more resources for multiple threats, other than just using linear responses. So, you know, that was just a little something. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Once again, this is just my personal thoughts on what I've observed and what I know people will end up doing. I think more BA decks might actually surface up as well. I'm seeing a lot of BA in my locals. There was a BA that topped the regional, just one BA though. You know, I do feel like a little bit more BA might come in and do some damage, but you know, that's just a little prediction. I could easily be wrong. Well, let me know what you guys think about this stuff right here. I would love to get your feedback in the comments below. This is J Money, and I'm signing out.